What's up guys, today we're going to be looking at a game between Dignitas and Evil Geniuses that is a great example of how to beat a late game team comp that has already got ahead. Now Ryze and Kog'Maw in this game both get extremely strong, and Dignitas really win it by managing a minion wave and using their own strengths of their comp to expose EG's few weaknesses. So first up, let's have a look at how Dignitas use the map, or more importantly, they use minions. Now at 50 minutes into the game, the 3000 gold lead basically means nothing, and actually when you look at EG's comp, they are probably slightly ahead. Now Ryze is full build and Kog is almost there, so right now they've decided to use that advantage and they're gonna push. I'll just roll this clip and you'll see that EG commit to the dive after Syndra misses her stun, but Braum is the only one close enough, so they end up using quite a lot of skills just to get him down. Now pushing and diving here is not a bad play. Their comp is stronger 5v5 and they come out on top really by opening up Dig's base, but the problem here is the minion wave at the top. Now this minion wave has been building up for the past 2 minutes, meaning that now it's freaking huge. Now EG had obviously decided to ignore it and force a fight, probably with the assumption that they'll win the fight and win the game from it, but the fact they didn't D-push before diving is going to bite them right in the arse. Now you almost always want your lanes to be pushing with you when you push. Not only does it mean that you won't lose any towers from minions pushing into you, but it means that it can easily create an opportunity to dive. Now as an example here, we have 5 players pushing top. Eventually this minion wave at the bottom is going to reach the tower and someone from blue team is going to have to go and deal with it. Now they've gone, it means that red team have a 4v5 and they can easily dive, especially when it gets later on into the game. Now what actually happens in this game is EG push mid and bot, but they leave the top lane pushing into them. As I roll this, you're going to see that as EG retreat, Jax uses teleport top lane with that huge wave and ends up taking an inhibitor that really swings the game. Now all of this would be pointless if EG were losing anyway, but they could have easily won this game, and to show you that I've picked a fight from just before they dive. Now this first fight is around Baron and it starts to go well for EG, but Dig managed to turn it by abusing the short range of EG that I mentioned. So Syndra stuns Nami here, which is a big threat down, and that's when Ryze decides to flash in onto her to engage. While Ryze is super tanky right now, if he eats a Syndra stun to the face after he flashes in, then the rest of Dig can lock him up and he'll die before being able to do anything, which is why we see him choose to go after it's used. Now Syndra does Zhonya's straight away and Jax has dived onto Ryze to defend her, which does unfortunately mean he's jumped into 2 hyper carries and a bunch of CC, but it does save her life and really he has no other play here. Now at this point it's a 1-for-1, and considering Syndra ults Renekton, EG should have the advantage. Now this is when Dig use their range, they culling to force EG back, and Syndra right here is just on zone duty. Syndra has a higher range than any former CC on EG, and the only way she can't zone is if they just run at her, in which case really she should just stun them and run back to her team. Now unfortunately, as I roll this, you're going to see that she gets hit by a bubble and instantly dies to Ryze, followed by Lucian dying after a little chase as well. Now the last thing I want to show you is actually the last fight of the game. Now in the fight before, we saw that EG were actually doing really well in fights, but now the inhibitor is down from mismanaging that wave, it's all going wrong. Now this right here is what loses EG the game. Now Kog has no mana, he's running back to base, and I'll roll this forward just a second so that you can see that as soon as he does go back, Lee Sin engages and kicks Gragas back into his team. Now there isn't really much to break down here in this fight, but the reason I wanted to show you it was because it was super smart from Dignitas. The second Kog'Maw had no mana and went back to base, they engaged knowing that he couldn't get there in time, and that won them the game. Now this video was a bit different from my other breakdowns because it focused way more on the wave control and strategy side I guess than actually breaking down fights, but if you enjoyed it, be sure to let me know with a comment, like or subscribe, and I'll catch you in my next video.